In this tutorial, we're going to cover the back, thorax, and abdominal muscles. So we'll go ahead and start with the back. So in this figure, you can see the trapezius muscle. This is a drawing of the superficial muscles of the back. So we have the posterior back that we're looking at. And this muscle, this huge muscle right here, which goes all the way from the occipital bone and then down along the spine, all the way down. This muscle is called the trapezius. Trapezi means trapezoid shape, and that's kind of the shape that this particular muscle has. The job of this muscle is to rotate and adduct and really stabilize and support the scapula. So it takes the scapula and moves it towards the spine and just overall stabilizes the scapula. So if you remember, the scapula is a bone that's located deep underneath this muscle in this area right here. Okay, that's called the trapezius. Alright, next we'll cover some more muscles of the back. Let me orient this picture for you. Over here we have superficial muscles, and over here we have deeper muscles. Okay, just to kind of orient you. So we'll go ahead and start over here on the superficial side, at least starting out. So our first muscle is the splenius capitis. Splenium means bandage, and caput means head. So I don't get the bandage part, but it is located near the head and does attach to the occipital bone of the skull. And this is the splenius capitis right here. The job of the splenius capitis is to grab a hold of your occipital bone and pull your head backwards, so it extends the head. If we take and we cut the splenius capitis, so here we've cut the splenius capitis, we can get down to the deeper muscle called the semispinalis capitis. The semispinalis capitis, semi means half, spinalis means the spinous processes of the vertebrae, and caput means head. So it kind of describes what it attaches to and where it's located. The semispinalis capitis also grabs a hold of the occipital bone and extends your head, or pulls your head in a backwards motion. Alright, so next we have the levator scapulae. So I'm going to show you a non-cut view of the levator scapulae over here. And this is a cut view of the levator scapulae. Levator means raise, and scapulae refers to the scapula. Of course, the scapula is this bone right here that you can see the levator grabbing a hold of. The job of the levator scapulae is to elevate or pull upwards. In this particular motion, it pulls upwards the scapula. Okay, so that's the levator scapulae. Alright, next we have a pair of muscles that are shaped in a similar way. They're both called rhomboids, and the rhomboid means a rhomboid or diamond shape. And we have a rhomboid minor and a rhomboid major. Minor, of course, means lesser, and major means greater. So let's look at the rhomboid minor. So this is the rhomboid minor right here. You can see that it articulates, it attaches to the scapula right here, and then the spinous processes of the vertebrae right here. It does adduct and stabilize the scapula, so it does pull the scapula in this particular direction, and it helps to stabilize the scapula. And it's called the rhomboid minor. The bigger one is the rhomboid major, and it has a very similar origin and insertion here in the scapula and the spinous processes of the vertebrae. And it also adducts, that is, it pulls the scapula in this particular way, and it stabilizes the scapula. So that's called the rhomboid major. Now you should always practice your muscles after we go over them, so you could stop the video now and practice a little bit reviewing the muscles we just covered. Alright, so let's look at this figure of the back. We have removed the trapezius, and we've removed some other muscles so you can see a little bit deeper in. So we'll start over here on this side, starting with the deltoid. So the deltoid has a root of delta, which means triangle, and so this muscle right here that's on your shoulder, it does have a triangular kind of shape to it, and that's why they call it deltoid. So the deltoid is going to abduct the arm. So abduction, ab means away, so it's going to pull the arm in this particular way. Of course, adduction, adduction, brings the arm this way. So this particular muscle abducts the arm, and it's called the deltoid. Next, we have the supraspinatus. So let me just orient you. This is the scapula, and this is the spine of the scapula. So this particular muscle kind of tucks in above the spine. Supraspinatus is located right there. Supra means above, and spina refers to the spine of the scapula. And if you see how it's kind of arranged, it does come around and then attach to the humerus. Okay, so that kind of tells you a little bit about its function. And it's going to abduct, that is, it's going to cause the arm to go away from the body. So it's going to cause abduction of the arm. So that's called the supraspinatus. Below the supraspinatus, or below the spine of the scapula, we have the infraspinatus. Infra means below, and spinatus refers to the spine of the scapula. And one of the jobs of the infraspinatus is to laterally rotate your arm. So it laterally rotates your arm. We next have the teres minor. So teres minor is located right there. And teres minor, teres means long and round. Minor means lesser. So it's a long and round muscle that's smaller than the teres major. And its job is to extend the arm, which means to move your arm in a backwards direction. So that's the job of the teres minor. Now, just to let you know, we've talked about joints before in the joint lecture, and the rotator cuff is made from tendons from the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, and the teres minor. And in the front, of course, subscapularis is going to be involved in creating that rotator cuff. So those are pretty important muscles for creating the rotator cuff. All right, next we have teres major, which is this chunky muscle right there. Teres again means long and round, and major means greater or bigger. And it also helps to extend the arm or pull the arm in a backwards motion. And it's called the teres major. All right, so next we have this huge muscle here on this side and on this side, and this is called the latissimus dorsi. Latissimus means widest, and dorsi means back. So it extends generally across the whole back, this latissimus dorsi. And it has several jobs that it does. It extends, which means pull backwards. It adducts, which means pull the arm towards, and it rotates the arm. So it extends the arm, adducts or pulls the arm back in towards the body, and it also allows the arm to rotate. Okay, so pretty important muscle, the latissimus dorsi. All right, so those are some muscles you can see on this particular back drawing. And we'll take all the muscles off of the previous drawing and show you some deeper muscles. These deeper muscles are called the erector spinae. And they're a series of muscles, so it's not just one muscle, but it's a series of muscles that we call the erector spinae. And the job of these particular muscles is to extend the back or allow you to arch your back. And erector means to straighten, and spinae refers to the spine, so that's how it got its name. All right, so you should go ahead and stop the video now and practice your muscles. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next drawing. And this has some of the chest and abdominal muscles. So we'll start with this thing that's not a muscle, but it's a tendon. So a collection of all the tendons comes together into this thing called the linea alba. So linea means line, alba means white, and literally it's just a tendon at the midline of the abdomen. So it's the accumulation of several muscles coming together and their tendons coming together at that particular location. So it's a pretty distinctive feature, linea alba. All right, so on this side of the body, this is going to be superficial, and over here we're going to have deeper muscles. So we're going to remove the muscles from the one side so you can see deeper in on the other side. Okay, so let's start on the superficial side, and we'll look at the external oblique. So this is the external oblique. External means closer to the surface. Oblique means diagonal. You can kind of see that the fibers there are in a diagonal direction in this particular direction. So this is called the external oblique, and it flexes the vertebral column. So if you do a sit-up, it aids you in helping to do a sit-up or flexing the torso of your body. Okay, external oblique. On the superficial side, we can see the internal oblique here. There's a little piece of it here. Its fibers run in a little different direction, as you can see just looking at the fibers and how they're arranged. Of course, internal means further from the surface, and oblique means diagonal. The internal oblique also helps to flex the vertebral column, or to allow you to do a sit-up. Okay, that's internal oblique. Now you do have to remove the external oblique in order to be able to see the internal oblique. So the internal oblique is a deeper muscle than the superficial external oblique. Even deeper than the internal oblique is the transverse abdominis. Transverse means perpendicular to the midline, which is basically in this direction here. That would be a transverse section through the body. So the transverse abdominis is going to be the deepest of the three muscles we just covered, and it compresses the abdomen or just pushes on the abdomen. That's transverse abdominis. Next, we have a series of muscles here that are called the rectus abdominis. They're all connected together into one functioning muscle. And rectus means straight, well, a straight muscle over the midline, and abdominis refers to the abdomen. So the rectus abdominis is another muscle that flexes the vertebral column, and you use it in doing or performing a sit-up. Okay, so rectus abdominis. We next have a series of muscles here. I'm just pointing little arrows to them. It's called the serratus anterior. Serratus means sawtoothed, and anterior means towards the front of the body. And the job of the serratus anterior depends on what's going on in your body. Normally it abducts the scapula, that is, it pulls the scapula away from the midline or from the spine, from the midline of the body. And it also can reverse its action, and when you're doing very labored breathing, it can help, if the scapula is stabilized, it can pull on the ribs and help to enlarge the rib cage so that you can breathe more easily. So in very exhaustive breathing, we'll use the serratus anterior to help elevate the ribs and aid us in breathing. All right, also in this particular picture, you can see the pectoralis major over here. It's a superficial thorax muscle. And pector means chest, and major means greater. And the job of this is to adduct the arm. So it basically brings the arm, if the arm were out here, it brings the arm towards the midline of the body. So it does adduction, adduction. Okay, it's called the pectoralis major. So you should practice your muscles, and you could stop the video and do that at this time. Just showing you some muscles that we've already covered, but in a little bit deeper view. We have the linea alba, which is that accumulation of multiple muscles in the tendon right there in the center or midline of the body, linea alba. We have the internal oblique. Okay, so the external oblique is right there, and it's been cut so that we can see the internal oblique, which is here. And then if we take and remove the internal oblique, we can see the transverse abdominis. We didn't cover this because the pectoralis major was covering it over, but if we go to a more deep position, remove the pectoralis major and go to a more deep position, we can see the, let me go back, sorry about that. Zoom back out. And we can take and we can look at the pectoralis minor. Okay, the pectoralis minor is right there. You can see it grabs a hold of the coracoid process of the scapula and it grabs a hold of ribs. And the pector means chest and minor means lesser. The job of this particular muscle is to abduct the scapula. So it does pull on the scapula. It pulls the scapula away from the midline of the spine. It also, in forceful breathing, it can take and pull on the ribs and therefore enlarge the rib cage and aid in forceful breathing. Okay, so that's the pectoralis minor. Okay, and so I just pulled the words away so you can practice some of your muscles. There's several muscles you can see here. Can you get them? Can you see that there is the trapezius, pectoralis minor, serratus anterior, and even levator scapulae? It's located right there. The last muscle that I wanted to go ahead and cover in this particular tutorial is the external anal sphincter. So the external anal sphincter is located right at the end of the anus. There's the anus right there, and that muscle, the external anal sphincter muscle, is a sphincter muscle. It's a circular muscle that surrounds the anus and allows, voluntary control over waste products going out of that exit hole. So that's called the external anal sphincter. Of course, external means it's on the outside surface. Anal means it's around the anus. And a sphincter muscle is a circular muscle. All right. Well, I hope you learned a lot. Make sure you go back and take and look at those blank images and practice a lot so that you can learn these muscles. See you next time.